welcome, and thank you for allowing us to share this quiet time with you. This audiobook novel is intended as a gentle companion for the peaceful moments of your day. It is a story designed to help you unwind, to create a sanctuary of calm where the noise of the outside world can gently fade away. In Where Moss Softens the Old Steps, we will be spending some time in the quiet comfort of the Stonecutter's cottage. Here, we will join Arthur in his simple daily rhythm of gentle observation. We will notice with him the way the morning light catches the dew, the feeling of cool stone underhand, and the profound peace that can be found in the slow, steady passage of a quiet day. Should you find comfort here and wish for more moments like this, perhaps consider liking and subscribing before you settle in fully and set your device aside. It is a small gesture that helps others find this peaceful space as well. And now, there is nothing more to do but to take a slow, soft breath. Let go of the day and let us begin. Chapter 1, The First Quiet Light. The day did not arrive with a sound, but with a slow alteration in the quality of the darkness. In the small bedroom of the cottage, the deep, inky blackness softened at its edges, turning to charcoal, then to a soft, hazy gray. Arthur's eyes opened to this gentle change, his breathing slow and even in the profound quiet of the house. For a long moment, he simply lay there, feeling the slight weight of the linen sheet over him, the coolness of the air on his face. The only sound was the almost imperceptible hum of the house settling around him, a sound so familiar it was like silence itself. He swung his legs over the side of the bed, his bare feet meeting the worn, smooth surface of the wooden floorboards. The wood was cool but not cold, polished by a century of quiet footsteps. He rose without haste, his movements measured and deliberate in the hushed dawn. He moved from the bedroom into the main room, which served as both living space and kitchen. A pale, ethereal light was beginning to seep through the deep-set window over the stone sink. It was not yet sunlight, but its precursor, a luminous wash of soft lilac and pale rose that painted a single hazy rectangle on the far wall. Arthur padded over to the window, his gaze drawn to the world just outside. There, leading from his door to the small garden path, were the 3 stone steps. They were ancient, their edges rounded by countless seasons of rain and frost, and they were covered almost completely in a thick, dense carpet of moss. In this early, fragile light, the moss was a deep, mysterious green, and each tiny frond held a perfect, glistening bead of dew. The sight was a quiet greeting, a constant and reassuring feature of his world. He watched as a single droplet, grown too heavy, slid from a blade of moss and vanished into the hole. Turning from the window, he moved to the small counter. He took up the metal kettle, its handle smooth and cool in his palm. The weight was familiar, comforting. He filled it at the sink, the sound of the water a soft, rushing whisper in the still room, a stark but pleasant contrast to the silence. He placed the kettle on the stove and with a soft click lit the gas burner. The flame caught with a gentle whoosh, its blue and orange tongues licking at the kettle's base. While the water heated, He selected a simple ceramic mug from a shelf, its surface a plain cream-colored glaze, and placed a single spoonful of loose herbal leaves into its base. The kettle soon began to sing, its whistle starting as a low hum and rising to a clear, steady note. Arthur turned off the flame, and the whistle died away, returning the kitchen to its quiet state. He poured the steaming water over the leaves in the mug, watching as they swirled and danced, releasing their pale golden color into the water. A curl of fragrant steam, smelling of chamomile and dried mint, rose to meet him. He carried the warm mug to the small wooden table and sat in the chair that faced the window. He did not drink right away, but simply held the mug in both hands, letting its gentle warmth seep into his palms. Outside, the light was strengthening, turning from lilac to a soft golden white. The dewdrops on the mossy steps now caught this new light, sparkling like a scattering of tiny fallen stars. He took a slow breath, inhaling the scent of the tea and the cool, clean air of his quiet home. The day had begun. Chapter 2. Touching the cool moss. After the last warm sip of tea had been finished, Arthur rinsed the mug at the stone sink and left it to dry. The morning was calling to him, not with any urgency, but with a gentle invitation. He moved to the front door, a heavy, solid plank of oak that had been in place for as long as the cottage itself. His hand closed around the cool, smooth iron of the latch. With a familiar low groan, the door swung inward, and the air of the world outside flowed in to meet him. It was cool and clean, carrying the scent of damp earth and the subtle green fragrance of growing things. He stepped across the threshold, the stone cool beneath his bare feet. The morning light was soft, filtered through a high, thin layer of cloud that diffused the sun, preventing any harsh glare. It was a perfect light for seeing the true colors of the garden. He paused at the top of the 3 stone steps, the same ones he had watched from his window. Now, he was a part of the scene. He took the first step down, then the second, and on the third, he stopped and crouched down. He reached out a hand, his fingers hesitating for a moment before gently pressing into the surface of the moss. It was exactly as he knew it would be, incredibly soft, dense, and cool to the touch, with a slight, springy resistance. It felt like a living velvet. He traced the line of a crevice in the stone, a miniature valley completely filled with the lush green growth. He noticed the subtle variations in its color, from a bright, almost lime green, where new growth was thickest, to a deeper, shadowy forest green in the older, more established patches. The tiny water droplets he had seen from inside still clung to the fronds, cool and perfect against his skin. He stayed there for a long moment, simply feeling the texture and coolness, his mind quiet, his attention fully on the small, intricate world at his feet. A small brown bird with a white chest landed on a nearby fence post, chirped 3 clear notes, and then flew off, its wings a soft, whirring sound in the quiet air. The sound was a gentle nudge, and Arthur slowly rose to his feet. A sense of deep peace settled within him. He walked a few paces to where a small metal watering can sat beside a rain barrel. He dipped it into the barrel, the water clear and cold. The can was not heavy, but it had a pleasant balancing weight as he carried it over to the small patch of ferns and wildflowers that grew beside the steps. He tilted the spout, and a gentle stream of water showered down. The sound was a soft patter on the leaves, a hushed drumming on the soil. He watched as the water darkened the rich black earth, pooling for a second before being greedily drunk by the thirsty ground. He moved slowly, giving each plant a gentle drink, watching the water purl on the waxy surfaces of the leaves or trace silvery paths down the delicate stems. The air filled with the scent of petrichor, that wonderful aroma of rain on dry earth, even though the water came from the barrel and not the sky. It was the smell of life, of refreshment, of simple, quiet care. Chapter 3. The scent of polished wood. The sun had climbed higher, its light now a warmer, more golden hue that slanted through the cottage windows, laying long, soft-edged rectangles of brightness on the wooden floor. An indoor quiet had settled over the cottage, a comfortable stillness punctuated only by the slow, steady tick of an old clock on the wall. It was the kind of afternoon that called for a simple, focused task. Arthur scanned the room, and his eyes settled on a small wooden box resting on a low bookshelf. It was a simple, unadorned thing, made of a light-colored wood, perhaps ash or maple. He had found it years ago, empty and forgotten, and had since used it to store small, smooth stones he collected on his walks. He lifted it from the shelf, its surface cool and smooth, but lacking a certain depth. He carried it to the main table and set it down in a patch of sunlight. From a drawer, he retrieved a soft, clean linen cloth and a round, flat tin. He twisted the lid off the tin, releasing the faint, sweet scent of beeswax and honey into the air. The polish inside was a solid pale gold, firm to the touch. He dipped a corner of the cloth into the tin, rubbing it gently to warm the wax, and collect a small amount on the fabric. The scent grew a little stronger, a comforting, natural perfume that spoke of hives and summer fields. He set the tin aside and turned his full attention to the box. Starting with the lid, he began to rub the wax into the wood in slow, deliberate circular motions. The process was meditative. There was the soft, whispering sound of the cloth moving against the wood, the slight resistance of the grain, the gradual transformation taking place under his hand. He was in no hurry. His focus narrowed to the feeling of the cloth, the sight of the wood slowly drinking in the nourishing wax, its color deepening, its grain becoming more pronounced and vivid. The pale, unremarkable wood began to glow with a soft, internal warmth. He worked his way methodically around the sides of the box, turning it carefully in the sunlight to see each surface clearly. The repetitive motion was soothing, a quiet rhythm for his hands that allowed his mind to become still. He was not thinking of anything in particular, merely observing the task at hand, the way the light caught the newly polished surface, the subtle change in texture from dry to silky smooth, the pleasant scent that now filled the small room. A bird sang its song outside the window, a brief, cheerful melody that seemed to be a part of the afternoon's gentle tapestry. When the entire box was coated in a thin, even layer of wax, he set it aside for a few moments to let it set. Then he took a clean section of the cloth and began to buff the surface. This motion was quicker, lighter, and the result was immediate. A soft, lustrous sheen emerged, not a glassy shine, but a deep satin glow that looked and felt alive. He picked up the box, turning it over in his hands. It felt warmer now, smoother, cared for. He ran his thumb over the lid, a quiet satisfaction settling in his heart. He had not created anything new, but he had restored a small measure of beauty and life to an old, simple object. Chapter 4. A Path Through Dappled Sun. The warmth of the polished wooden box still seemed to linger on his fingertips as a quiet restlessness stirred within Arthur. It was not a feeling of anxiety, but a gentle pull from the world outside the cottage walls, an invitation to move and breathe the afternoon air. He placed the now glowing box back on its shelf, where it caught the light with a quiet confidence. He pulled on a pair of simple, soft-soled shoes and made for the door. The familiar groan of the heavy oak was a farewell as he stepped out into the day. The air was warmer now than it had been in the morning, carrying the scent of sun-baked earth and the dry, papery fragrance of distant grasses. He bypassed the garden and turned onto a narrow path that led away from the cottage. It was not a paved path, but one made of packed earth and fine gravel, softened by fallen leaves and the occasional encroachment of moss from its edges. It was a path he had walked hundreds of times, and his feet found their way without thought. The path led him into a small copse of slender birch trees. Their white, papery bark stood in gentle contrast to the deep green of the ferns that grew at their feet. As he walked beneath their canopy, the world changed. The direct sunlight was gone, replaced by a beautiful, dappled light that shifted and danced with the gentle movement of the leaves overhead. Thousands of tiny moving spots of sun played across the path, and his clothes, a silent, shimmering spectacle. The effect was immediately calming, as if he were walking through a gentle, sunlit rain. He slowed his pace, his attention drawn to the small details around him. He noticed a single gray feather lying in the middle of the path, its structure perfect and delicate. He crouched to look at it, but left it where it lay. He observed the intricate web-like patterns of lichen growing on the shaded side of a tree trunk, a miniature map of green and pale gray. His hearing seemed to sharpen in the quiet of the woods. He could distinguish the soft rustle of his own footsteps on the earth from the gentle whisper of the wind moving through the birch leaves high above. The path curved gently, leading him to a small clearing where a large flat-topped stone sat, warmed by the sun. He sat down, the heat of the stone seeping pleasantly through his trousers. From here, he could look back the way he had come, seeing the path as a soft brown ribbon winding through the shifting light and shadow. He closed his eyes for a moment, simply feeling the warmth of the stone beneath him and the soft breeze on his face. There was no destination, no goal for this walk. The walk itself was the entire point, a slow, quiet immersion in the peacefulness of the familiar woods. After a time, feeling rested and centered, he stood up, brushed the dust from his trousers, and began the slow, unhurried journey back to the cottage. Chapter 5. The Stillness of Candlelight. Arthur returned to the cottage as the world was beginning to soften. The golden light of afternoon had given way to the long, gentle shadows and honeyed tones of late evening. The air was cooling, and a profound stillness was settling over the landscape. The groan of the old oak door as he opened it sounded different now, deeper and more resonant in the quiet air. Closing it behind him, the sounds of the outside world were muted, and the deep peace of his home enveloped him once more. The interior of the cottage was dim, filled with a soft, grayish-blue light that pooled in the corners. He moved through this peaceful gloom to the stone mantelpiece above the small, unused hearth. On it sat a simple white candle in a plain ceramic holder. Beside it was a box of matches. He picked up the box. The faint rattle of the matches inside a small, sharp sound in the silence. He struck one, the brief, scratching noise followed by a tiny burst of sulphurous light as the flame caught. He brought the wavering flame to the candle's wick. The wick darkened, sputtered for a second, and then caught, blossoming into a small, steady, golden teardrop of light. He gently blew out the match, its wisp of smoke curling into the air, and the room was transformed. The single point of light did not illuminate the whole space, but rather created an intimate circle of gentle, warm radiance. It pushed back the deepest of the twilight shadows, making the familiar objects around it, the clock, the polished wooden box, a stack of books, seem softer and more mysterious. Arthur pulled his favorite chair closer to the hearth, not for warmth, but for the company of the small flame. He settled into its familiar comfort, the worn fabric soft against his back. He did not read or busy himself with any task. He simply sat and watched the candle. The flame was a living thing, swaying and dancing in currents of air too subtle for him to feel. Its light flickered on the walls, making the shadows shift and breathe. The top edge of the candle grew soft and translucent, and a single slow tear of melted wax traced a path down its side. Outside the window, the last vestiges of color were draining from the sky, leaving a deep, velvety indigo. A few early stars began to prick the darkness. He glanced toward the window, and though he could not see them clearly, he knew the mossy steps were out there, gathering the cool night dew, resting in the darkness. The cottage was quiet, a safe and peaceful haven in the vast stillness of the night. The gentle candlelight, the comfortable chair, the profound silence of his home. It was a simple, perfect end to a simple, perfect day. Arthur took a slow, deep breath, feeling the last of the day's tension release from his shoulders, and settled deeper into the quiet.